There are people who walk through their days wearing a calm face, greeting others with a nod and a smile, while somewhere behind their eyes, a storm is always moving. Their thoughts never truly settle. They wake up already thinking about what needs to be handled, already running through the list of things that could go wrong, already preparing for the next problem before the current one has even passed. And after months of living that way, maybe years, the pressure stops feeling like something unusual. It becomes the air they breathe. They forget that peace was ever an option. Perhaps you recognize that feeling. You finally sit down after a long day, and instead of rest, your mind goes to work. It pulls up old conversations you wish had gone differently. It replays the moment someone said something that stung, turning it over and over like a stone in a river, looking for meaning that probably was never there. Your body is still. Your eyes might even be closed, but your mind is running a marathon. That kind of tiredness is not something sleep fully fixes because it is not the body that is worn out. It is something deeper, something quieter, and the world keeps piling weight onto it without asking whether you have room to carry more. Think about what that weight is made of. It is the tense mornings when something small goes wrong and suddenly the entire day feels threatened. It is the disagreement that should have lasted 5 minutes but stretched into an evening of cold silence. It is the feeling of being completely misunderstood by someone you care about, standing there trying to explain yourself while they look through you instead of at you. It is holding yourself together for everyone around you while privately feeling like the ground beneath you is slowly giving way. And then, as if your mind wasn't already full, something small happens. Someone speaks to you with an edge in their voice that you didn't deserve. A stranger's impatience lands on you like it was meant for you. A single comment, maybe even a careless one, cuts through whatever thin layer of calm you had managed to build. And just like that, the peace you were holding on to vanishes. Not because the comment was devastating, but because you were already at the edge and it only took the lightest push. This is how people get worn down. Not through one enormous catastrophe that breaks everything at once. Through thousands of small moments, each one adding a little more pressure, a little more noise, a little more weight. And most people have never been taught how to protect themselves from that kind of slow erosion. So they absorb everything. They react the moment something touches them. They carry the residue of every difficult interaction long after is over, wondering why they always feel drained, why rest never quite reaches them, why even good days carry a faint shadow. A philosopher named Voss once wrote something that has stayed with me. He said that a person who cannot govern their inner world will always be governed by the outer one. He did not mean that feelings were weaknesses. He was pointing at something more precise than that. He meant that when your emotions are constantly running the decisions, when every outside event has automatic and unlimited access to your state of mind, then you're not really living your life. You're being lived by it. And that is not strength. That is surrender dressed up as sensitivity. And real strength looks different. It is not the absence of emotion. It is not pretending that nothing reaches you, building walls so high that nothing can get in, turning yourself into something cold and untouchable. Real strength is being fully human and feeling everything that life sends your way, while still maintaining the ability to choose how you respond. It is staying grounded when the pressure rises. It is remaining recognizable to yourself even when circumstances are doing everything they can to knock you off balance. And here is what matters most. Problems are not going away. They are a permanent feature of being alive. Difficult people exist, and they will cross your path. Unexpected situations will arrive with no warning and no apology. Disappointment is written into the contract of having hopes and caring about outcomes. You cannot clear these things from your life any more than you can clear weather from the sky. But you can change your relationship to them. You can stop letting every storm that rolls and take up permanent residence inside your mind. You can learn to let things move through you rather than into you. And when you learn that, quietly, everything shifts. The first thing worth understanding is that most of what breaks people mentally is not a dramatic event. It is accumulation. It is the way small tensions build on each other without release. The home that never quite feels restful. The constant background hum of responsibility. The feeling that you cannot let your guard down because the moment you do, something else will demand your attention. Living inside that kind of sustained, low-level pressure reshapes a person gradually. They become harder to reach, easier to irritate, quick to snap at things that once would have slid past them without leaving a mark. And the biggest reason this accumulation takes hold is that most people stay emotionally fused to everything around them. They have no separation between what happens and what they feel about what happens. Someone walks into the room in a bad mood, and that mood immediately becomes part of their own interior weather. A conversation takes a sharp turn, and they spend the next 3 hours internally arguing with someone who has long since moved on. One painful moment spreads like ink in water, coloring everything that follows it. You wonder why a day that started fine ended feeling ruined. And the answer is that your mind never found a way to quarantine the hard moments. It let them bleed into everything else. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from this, and you can sometimes see it in people without them saying a word. It sits behind the eyes. It lives in the slight tension around the jaw. It is the heaviness that a person carries into a room, even when they're trying to seem fine. It is what happens when the mind has been working overtime for so long that it no longer knows how to stop, even when it is given permission. This is why the ability to separate yourself mentally from what is happening around you matters so much. Not distance in the cold sense, not indifference, but the capacity to pause between stimulus and response, to create just enough space that you are choosing your reaction rather than being dragged into it. That space, small as it sounds, changes everything, because inside that space lives clarity, and clarity is where better choices are born. Imagine someone says something unkind to you during a moment that is already tense. The automatic response is immediate. Your chest tightens. Your jaw sets. Your mind starts preparing its defense or its counterattack. Most people are 3 sentences into the argument before they have even thought about whether the argument is worth having. But a different approach is available. A trained mind notices the reaction rising and does something unusual. It pauses. Not dramatically, not visibly necessarily, just internally. It asks a simple question before doing anything else. What is actually happening here? And does it deserve what I am about to give it? That question is disarming in the best possible way. Because the honest answer, most of the time, is that the moment does not deserve your full emotional output. Not every sharp word reflects a deep truth. Not every frustration aimed at you is actually about you. Not every tense situation is a battle that needs to be fought to its conclusion. When you can see that clearly before you react, you preserve something valuable. You preserve your energy. You preserve your composure. You preserve your ability to think clearly about what actually matters. Voss also understood something that took me a long time to fully appreciate. He recognized that a person whose reactions are completely predictable has given away a certain kind of power. When those around you know exactly what will provoke you, exactly what will send you spiraling, exactly which words will break your calm, they're holding a map of your vulnerabilities. But when you develop the ability to stay steady across a wider range of situations, when you stop being so easy to read and rattle, something interesting happens. People interact with you differently. They treat you with a different kind of respect, perhaps without even fully understanding why. It is not that you have become intimidating. It is that you have become stable. And stability, in a world full of reactive, unpredictable behavior, is rare enough to command attention. There's a way to build this, and it starts not in moments of crisis, but in moments of ordinary calm. Strategic composure is not something you find at the exact moment you need it, as if it were sitting in a drawer waiting. It is something you have already been practicing for weeks, quietly, in small ways, so that when pressure arrives, the habit is already there to meet it. It is the 5 quiet minutes you gave yourself in the morning before the noise of the day began. It is the pause you took before responding to a message that irritated you. It is the walk you went on when you felt the tension building giving it somewhere to go before it built into something harder to manage. Start mornings before the day's weight arrives. Before the first obligation, the first demand, the first thing that pulls your attention toward the noise. Just a few minutes of sitting with yourself quietly, letting your mind wake up gently rather than throwing it into the deep end immediately. People dramatically underestimate how much the first 10 minutes of a day set the tone for the next 14 hours. A morning that begins in chaos produces a mind that spends the rest of the day catching up to itself. And at the other end of the day, learn to put things down. Not permanently, not in denial, but with intention. Many people carry the entire emotional weight of what happened from morning until night right into their sleep. The disagreement from the afternoon, the email that bothered them, the moment they wish they had handled differently. They lie in the dark replaying it all, and they call it thinking, but it is not thinking. It is not solving anything or producing any useful insight. It is just burning energy in a place where there is no light to work by. Give yourself a deliberate transition, a walk, a few slow breaths, a moment where you consciously tell yourself that the day is done and what was carried today does not need to be carried through the night. It sounds simple. Simple things, practiced consistently, are exactly how character is built. The mind is territory, and like any territory, it either belongs to you or to whatever happens to wander into it. Mental clarity, mental dominance over your own thoughts and attention, is not a personality trait you either have or do not have. It is a practice. It is the ongoing choice to decide where your focus goes instead of letting every passing concern claim it automatically. One of the most common ways people surrender this territory without realizing it is through mental clutter. The half-finished thought from yesterday that is still sitting there. The fear about something that has not happened and may never happen. The other person's opinion that you keep turning over in your mind long after they have forgotten they even shared it. All of this takes up genuine space. It uses real energy. And when the mind is crowded with things that do not actually need to be there, the things that do matter become harder to think about clearly. A habit worth building is this. Once a day, perhaps in the evening or during a quiet moment in the afternoon, simply ask yourself what you have been carrying in your mind that you do not actually need to carry. The list is often longer than expected, and the act of recognizing it, of seeing it clearly rather than letting it operate as invisible background noise, gives you the opportunity to make a conscious choice about whether to keep holding it. The question that cuts through mental clutter better than almost any other is this one. What can I actually influence right now? Not in 5 years. Not if everything breaks a certain way. Right now, today, in this moment, what is genuinely within my reach? Because a great deal of the suffering people carry comes not from real problems, but from imagined control. They exhaust themselves, try to mentally manage outcomes that are not theirs to manage. Other people's decisions. Past events that cannot be altered. Future scenarios that may never arrive. The mind ties itself in knots trying to govern things that were never in its jurisdiction. When you learn to focus only on what is genuinely within your influence, the mental load becomes dramatically lighter. Not because the world has changed, because your relationship to it has. Emotions themselves are not the enemy of this. They are information. They're the nervous system's way of flagging what matters, what feels threatening, what deserves attention. The problem is not that you feel things. The problem is the absence of any relationship to what you feel, any awareness of it, any ability to choose what to do with it. When emotion operates purely on reflex, it is like a fire alarm that goes off at the same volume, whether something is burning or whether someone left toast in too long. It stops being useful. It becomes noise. Building a different relationship to your own emotional life starts with something deceptively small. When you notice a strong feeling arising, before doing anything with it, simply name it. Not dramatically, not as a performance. Just quietly, internally. Recognize it. I'm feeling irritated. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling hurt. That small act of naming creates a separation. You move from being inside the emotion to being someone who is observing the emotion. And that gap, tiny as it seems, is where choice lives. From there, the next question is simply this. What does this feeling actually need? Not what does it demand loudly in this moment, but what does it genuinely need? Some feelings need to be expressed. Some need to be examined. Some need time to settle before they can be trusted as reliable information. Some need to be released entirely, not because they were invalid, but because holding on to them serves nothing. Learning to ask that question rather than simply reacting to whatever the feeling is pushing you toward changes the quality of your decisions considerably. There will be times when the difficulty is not internal. When the challenge is navigating tension between yourself and another person, or a situation where emotions on multiple sides are running high and the air itself feels pressurized. In those moments, the instinct is to engage immediately, to say the thing that is on the tip of your tongue, to make your position known before the moment passes. But this instinct, well-intentioned as it often is, frequently makes things worse. Because when emotion is already high, the words you choose matter less than people think. People hear tone. They hear energy. They respond to what they feel from you more than to what you have actually said. The most powerful thing you can do in a tense moment is slow down while everything around you is speeding up. Speak less. Listen more fully. Not in a passive way, not in a way that signals you have checked out, but in a way that genuinely tries to understand what the other person is actually carrying before you respond to what they are expressing. Most conflicts between people are not really about what they appear to be about on the surface. They are about someone feeling unseen or unheard or dismissed or afraid. When you can see past the surface version of a conflict to what is actually driving it, you gain an entirely different kind of leverage. Not the leverage of having made your point loudest, the leverage of having understood most accurately. And sometimes the wisest thing is to step back before things escalate to a point where damage becomes difficult to undo. This is not retreat. It is not weakness. It is a recognition that a conversation happening right now, with everyone's emotions running at full volume, is not the conversation that is going to solve anything. Better to create space, let the temperature drop, and return when both people can think more clearly. The situation does not disappear. But the version of yourself that returns to address it is more capable than the one who would have tried to handle it in the heat of the moment. Now, consider pressure itself. Most people have a purely defensive relationship with difficulty. They try to avoid it. They try to minimize it. When it arrives anyway, they go into a kind of protective crouch, hoping it will pass quickly. And that is understandable. Pressure is uncomfortable. Instinct says to reduce it or escape it. But instability, difficulty, and disruption are not only threats. They're also teachers. They're also moments of unusual clarity. They're also, for those with the awareness to notice, moments of opportunity. When everything is calm and predictable, thinking tends to become lazy. Habits go unexamined. Assumptions are not questioned. The world keeps working in roughly the way you expect it to. So you stop asking whether there might be a better way to do things. Stop noticing what is fragile or what no longer serves you. But when pressure arrives, when the comfortable patterns are disrupted, thinking has no choice but to sharpen. Things that were invisible before suddenly become visible. What was taken for granted reveals itself to be either solid or hollow. The person who can stay mentally calm during those moments, who does not get swept into the emotional reaction that difficult times naturally produce, has access to something that most people around them do not. They can see. When everyone else is reacting, they are observing. When everyone else is running from the pressure, they're asking what it has come to show them. And what pressure usually shows, to anyone willing to look, is where real strength needs to be built, where real preparation was lacking, where real change is overdue. This is not about welcoming suffering. It is about refusing to let difficult times be purely costs. About insisting that they also produce something. Insight, growth, a clearer sense of what matters and what does not. The practice is simple to describe, even if it takes time to develop. When things go hard, instead of asking why this is happening to you, ask what this is showing you. That shift moves you from victim to student. And a student learns. A victim only endures. Over time, something remarkable builds inside a person who practices these things consistently. It is not that life stops being difficult. It does not. But a kind of rootedness develops. A stability that is not dependent on circumstances behaving in the way you prefer. You stop needing the world to be easy in order to feel steady. You carry a quiet confidence that is not arrogance, not performance, not the false certainty of someone who has never been tested. It is the earned confidence of someone who has been in the pressure and has come out the other side with their mind intact and their sense of self undisturbed. That is not a small thing. In a world where so many people are carried wherever their circumstances decide to take them, the ability to remain recognizably yourself, to think clearly, to choose deliberately, to protect the inner world where your actual life takes place, is genuinely rare. And it does not happen by accident. It is not something you stumble into. It is something you build deliberately through small, repeated choices in ordinary moments, day after day. You do not need a perfect life to feel steady inside it. You need a trained mind. A mind that knows the difference between what deserves its full attention and what can be allowed to pass. A mind that has learned the value of that pause between feeling and response. A mind that can sit inside difficulty without being consumed by it, can carry uncertainty without collapsing under it, can face the unpredictable without losing its own direction. That is what all of this is pointing toward. Not control over everything around you, just sovereignty over yourself. And once you begin practicing that, even imperfectly, even in small moments, the quality of your life changes in a way that is quiet and profound and entirely yours to keep.